Canada, a people's history, proudly presented with the corporate partnership support of Sun Life Financial, Ascenda, and the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation.
In the age of Queen Victoria, doctors prescribe a dark and powerful medicine to patients who are in pain.
Isabella was in great agony all night and was obliged to have recourse to opium in large quantities.
Isabella Clark MacDonald has become addicted to liquid opium taken in a glass of wine. She has been bedridden for almost her entire marriage to John A. MacDonald. It doesn't help that her husband is constantly called away to deal with political matters.
John has started for Toronto last evening. I am, thank God, much better. But my head is confused and I am not sure what I say.
The MacDonalds moved to Bellevue House in Kingston, hoping for a new beginning. But Isabella never recovers. During the Christmas holidays of 1857, John A. MacDonald is summoned to his wife's bedside one last time.
Isabella is in God's hands, and there we must leave her.
The death of Isabella MacDonald devastates her husband. He contemplates leaving politics for good. But powerful ideas are sweeping the land, and there are ominous rumblings south of the border that no one can ignore. Against a terrifying backdrop of civil war, 33 men must settle the fate of the Queen's colonies in British North America. It is a story of powerful personalities and a bitter political stalemate. One man, accused of treason in his youth, has become a passionate defender of the British Crown. Another risks his life as he preaches peace. They know half a continent is theirs if they can overcome deep mutual suspicion and resist dangerous forces gathering on the border. This is a time of secret deals and backroom interventions by the powerful. A story of risk and seduction. A gamble to build a country from sea to sea. In the sleepy British garrison town of London, Canada West, Amelia Harris has spent another sleepless night.
There appears to be a very great probability of war with the Yankees. If so, the country will be overrun. The thoughts of such a possibility keep me from sleep. Am I never to be free from care and trouble?
As a child, she saw her family's farm destroyed when American troops invaded Canada in 1814. Now she is not the only one to worry. As the 1860s dawn, a sense of fearful wakefulness disturbs the British colonies of North America. Civil war has erupted in the United States. It will become the most destructive conflict the world has ever seen. There are barely 4 million people in the colonies. Most live within striking distance of the American border, in the province of Canada and the colonies along the Atlantic. On their doorstep, a nightmare of slaughter. The northern states against the slave-owning South. Brother pitted against brother. In Washington, President Abraham Lincoln is furious that Britain seems to be siding with the southern states. He considers opening war on 2 fronts, against the South and against Britain's colonies in the North. Some New Yorkers are itching for a fight with the British.
In the event of England, in her folly, declaring war against the United States, the annexation of the British North American possessions will unavoidably follow. We could pour 150,000 troops into Canada in a week and overrun the province in 3 weeks more.
William Seward, the Secretary of State, believes it is America's destiny to inherit the colonies.
Nature designs that this whole continent, not merely these 36 states, shall be sooner or later within the magic circle of the American Union.
In Halifax, journalist and politician Joseph Howe is terrified.
Our cities would be captured, our fields laid to waste, our bridges blown up, our railways destroyed. Our womenfolk would become a prey to a soldiery largely drawn from the refuse of society.
But the people of British North America have no intention of being overrun. While the British Army readies itself for war, volunteers turn out in droves for the local militia. Amelia Harris also remains vigilant, for she knows the horrors of war.
Mr. Griffin returned today disgusted with everything he had seen in the States. He brought his pocket full of rings, taken from federal soldiers' letters in the dead letter office at Washington. They say the rings are made from the bones of rebels' legs. They are worse than savages.
In 1862, George Brown set sail for England on an extended holiday. He is 44, an upright, cheerless bachelor. He has not been home for 25 years. He will return transformed by his travels. On one of his stops, he looks up an old schoolmate. The two spend long hours discussing publishing and politics. But Brown is distracted by his friend's sister. Anne Nelson is 32, speaks French and German, and reads philosophy. She has an artistic eye and a cosmopolitan outlook. Within weeks, they marry.
How well I remember every event of that day. The walk to the station to meet you, the hope and the fear, the despair and the joy, changing every hour until all was settled in that delightful walk.
In London, he will also take the time to study political masters at work. He learns how weary some British politicians have grown of their colonial burdens. One radical member of Parliament blurts out what others are thinking.
I want the Canadians clearly to understand that England would not be sorry to see them depart from her tomorrow.
Brown returns from London with a new sense of urgency.
I come back with a better knowledge of public affairs and with a more ardent desire to serve.
When the Browns arrive back in Toronto, word quickly spreads. As she steps into the carriage, Anne Nelson Brown is astonished to hear that thousands are gathering nearby, waiting for her husband. He quickly prepares a few words, themes he will often repeat in the days to come.
After a 6 months' visit to the noblest and best governed land on earth, I feel more than ever the necessity for Upper Canadians of all shades of political opinion to unite. I trust that whenever the great interests of Canada are at risk, we will forget our merely political partisanship and rally around the cause of our country. Forget the minor differences which have...
The man who has stood for sectionalism is suddenly calling for compromise and cooperation.
Canada, we will pay more regard.
MacDonald decides to seize the moment. He and Cartier extend a hand to Brown. Critics warn Cartier to be cautious. Journalist Médéric Langteau believes Cartier is falling into a trap.
In the embrace between the Upper Canadian rhinoceros and L'Île Georges Etienne, we fear the latter has been gobbled up by the former. We even thought we heard the huge monster cry out just before he wolfed down his mortal enemy. At last, I can chew you up and swallow you down in one mouthful. You, your religion, and your race. Damn little Frenchman.
But to the horror of the critics, a coalition takes shape, uniting forces that seemed irreconcilable.
I consented to enter the cabinet with great reluctance, but it was such a temptation to have possibly the power of settling the sectional troubles of Canada forever.
Brown will now play a major role in shaping the political future. The province of Canada must again be broken in half, he argues, becoming a looser federation of two. But why stop there, others ask? Why not include the colonies along the Atlantic and the vast territory of Rupert's Land owned by the Hudson's Bay Company, and beyond them, stretching to the Pacific, British Columbia? It is an idea that inspires not just Brown, but all of the leadership, a country spanning the continent. Irish immigrant Darcy McGee gives voice to the vision.
Look to the land next to Europe, Newfoundland. Again, away towards the sunset, lies the new Canada West, the field for another great province. These are facts, not dreams. Consult the map, and there they stare you in the face, demanding the helping hand of wise and intrepid statesmen.
But the plan to remake the map of North America will have to overcome deep political rivalries. And face unexpected enemies. Perched on the cliffs where Wolfe fought Montcalm, colonial politicians struggle to create a country of their own. The passionate supporters of Confederation, determined to succeed. The desperate campaign to stop it. And the dawn of a new dominion. In the fall of 1864, something happens in Charlottetown that will be remembered for decades. After an absence of 21 years, the circus is in town.
Ladies and gentlemen, Swaymaker and Nichols Olympic Circus. Look at the array of stars. First-class artistes, and other attractions too numerous to mention. 2 performances every day at 2 and 7 o'clock p.m. 1 week only, admission 25 cents.
Days earlier, a boat has set off along the St. Lawrence bound for Charlottetown. On it, the most influential politicians in the province of Canada. George Brown is now in a coalition with a man he previously called a dried-up political weasel. He and John A. Macdonald have decided to tolerate each other. He has also made peace with a man he used to call a damnable little French Canadian, Georges-Étienne Cartier.
I was up at 4 in the morning to see the sun rise and have a saltwater bath. We had great fun coming down the St. Lawrence, having fine weather, a broad awning to recline under, lots of books, chessboards, and so forth.
They each go with different motives in mind. Cartier feels that if he can persuade the Maritimes to join in a union, together their population would balance that of English Canada West. Brown dreams about the end of French domination of English affairs, the end of political stalemate. Macdonald worries about American aggression. If the Maritimes will join Canada, perhaps together they can resist their powerful neighbor. They are 8 cabinet ministers, 3 secretaries, and with them, securely fastened in the hold, $13,000 worth of champagne. Persuasion will take many forms.
We were running along the coast of as pretty a country as you ever put your eyes upon. About noon, amid most beautiful scenery, we came suddenly on the capital city of the island.
But when they drop anchor in Charlottetown, no one is waiting for them. Everyone, it seems, is at the circus. Finally, they are noticed, and a small rowboat goes out to greet them. The maritime politicians are conducting their own meetings to explore maritime union. They politely postpone their discussions to hear what the Canadians have to say. For several days, behind closed doors, they talk. Separated and isolated, the Canadians argue, the colonies are vulnerable, economically weak. Together, they could build a railway from the Atlantic to the Pacific. They are amazed to discover they see the world much the same way. But mostly, They come to know each other when they adjourn for the day, as they stroll in the woods or drink champagne by the sea. In a matter of days, the Maritimers and Canadians have persuaded each other of the advantages of union. What kind of union and on whose terms remain to be seen, but they are giddy with success.
When I think of the nation we could become if all the provinces were under one government, I see the emergence of a great Anglo-American power.
As the delegates board their boats and the circus packs up, everyone is elated. But good intentions will soon be tested when the real work of nation building begins in Quebec City. October 1864. Summer has given way to a chilly autumn. Politicians from Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, New Brunswick, Newfoundland, and Canada are gathering in Quebec City. Many arrive by train, rarely a smooth or pleasant experience. Endless hours rattling along at 9 miles an hour. Mercy Coles, daughter of a delegate from Prince Edward Island, brings her diary up to date.
We've just started in cars again, and one might just as well try to write on horseback. A special train met us, and we came into Point Levy flying. How can I describe my first impression of Quebec? We saw Wolfe's monument on the Plains of Abraham, and the monument to the brave who fell at the taking of Quebec. It was pouring rain when we landed.
The whole Quebec Conference takes place under torrential storms. As the first order of business, delegates have their pictures taken. Local photographic studios quickly mass-produce calling cards. Mercy Coles collects them all.
All the gentlemen have been having their likenesses taken. Mr. Tilley was there. He gave me such a nice card of himself. Papa's is only tolerable.
Mercy Coles' father owns a brewery. He once fought a duel with Edward Palmer, but because neither was a very good shot, they now sit on the PEI delegation together. Two are doctors by training, Charles Tupper of Nova Scotia and Etienne Pascal Taché from Lower Canada. Ambrose Shea of Newfoundland is a businessman and journalist. Many are lawyers, like Oliver Mowat of Kingston and Adams Archibald from Nova Scotia. Few are as skilled in the art of lawmaking as MacDonald and Cartier. They have a distinct advantage over the others. The maritime delegations include politicians of all persuasions. Government members and rivals have joined forces to protect their regional interests. But Georges-Étienne Cartier has brought no critics with him. Of the 33 delegates gathering in Quebec City, only 4 are French. Cartier has decided he will speak for his fellow citizens.
I never let public prejudice be my guide. I only consult, and will only ever consult, my own conscience.
But Cartier does consult others. The railway barons are in town, hoping the delegates will agree to build a railway linking all the colonies. They spare no expense entertaining on their private cars, making the politicians as comfortable as possible. Cartier's most powerful critic is alarmed by the meeting in Quebec. Antoine-Aimé Dorion leads the Rouge Party.
The Grand Trunk people are behind all this. It is nothing more than another railway project designed to make a few people rich.
But the delegates work mostly on their own, free even of London's influence. Most of what happens in the room overlooking the St. Lawrence is kept secret, but a few notes taken during the conference survive.
We have the strongest feelings in favor of Confederation. And as Newfoundland stands as the key to the Atlantic, it is in the interest of Canada that we should not be taken hold of by any foreign power.
Separated as we are, we cannot defend ourselves. It would be a great question if England would send an army to defend any province from invasion. When we bring the country together, all our means would be united to repel an enemy.
We must, therefore, become important, not only to England, but in the eyes of foreign states, and especially of the United States, who have found it impossible to conquer 4 million of Southern whites. Our united population would reach that number. Is this the time for union? Now is the time, or we may abandon the idea in despair.
While the politicians spend long hours and days trapped in the conference room, their wives, children, and servants tour Quebec. They visit the Quebec Seminary to view scientific advancements. How light can now be seen as energy. Microscopes that measure with mathematical precision. And the famous pendulum of Foucault, proving to almost all doubters that the Earth rotates in constant, predictable patterns. For 3 weeks, the conference continues. And for 3 weeks, Mercy Coles spends each day dreaming of the evenings.
The governor's ball is to come off tonight. They say it is going to be such a crush. Major Bernard tells me we are to have grand times. The first word, almost, he said, was, "I hope you have brought the irresistible blue silk."
A journalist visiting from France is dazzled by Quebec City.
I am leading a very dissipated life indeed. Grand balls in the evening, endless concerts. Young and old, everyone mingles together.
The Governor General's niece, Frances Monk, casts a more cynical eye on the scene.
I danced with Dr. Tupper, Prime Minister of Nova Scotia, who trembled with nervousness as I whirled him through the Lancers. Old Coles is, I believe, a retired butcher, and oh, so vulgar I could not describe him. He is grey-haired and red-faced, and looks as if his legs were fastened on after the rest of his body to support his fat.
George Brown quickly retreats from all the fun.
I have just come from a grand ball given by the Executive Council. It went off very well, but to me was an insufferable bore. I've come to my quarters weary and worn, and with a shocking headache.
In the corridors and lavishly decorated rooms, delegates sometimes meet in smaller groups. John A. MacDonald and Kingston lawyer Oliver Mowat do much of the work drafting the clauses in the evenings in their rooms. 50 of the 72 resolutions are written behind closed doors, chiefly by MacDonald.
I must do it all alone, as there is not one person connected with the government who has the slightest idea of the nature of the work.
MacDonald's fingerprints show. He tries to make sure that Ottawa dominates the new federation.
We have given the federal legislature all the great subjects of legislation. We thereby strengthen the federal parliament and make the Confederation one people and one government.
As the hard-working delegates join the revelers, subtle forms of persuasion continue on the dance floor. Edward Whelan, a delegate from PEI, watches the politicians at work.
The cabinet ministers, the leading ones especially, are the most inveterate dancers I have ever seen. They do not seem to miss a dance during the livelong night. They are cunning fellows, and there's no doubt it is all done for a political purpose. They know that if they can dance themselves into the affections of wives and daughters of the country, the men will certainly become an easy conquest.
But the late-night work of John A. MacDonald is making many maritime delegates uncomfortable. Prince Edward Islanders feel increasingly isolated. They had wanted the Canadians to help them settle a century-old problem, buying out absentee landlords who own most of the island. But the leading Canadians are not listening anymore. Every motion seems to go against the interests of the smallest colony.
It may be said that Confederation will go on without Prince Edward Island, and that we may eventually be forced in.
Prince Edward Island would rather be out of the Confederation than consent to this motion.
Other Maritimers fear Ottawa has been made all-powerful, the provinces weak. Edward Chandler of New Brunswick doesn't like the direction the conference is taking.
I object to the proposed system. You are proceeding to destroy the constitutions of the local governments.
Tilly of New Brunswick is also alarmed.
The government would take all the public property and proposes nothing in return.
But if consensus is elusive, events in America, as always, cast a long shadow over Canadian affairs. Midway through the conference, Governor General Monk is called away to a crisis unfolding on the border. Confederate soldiers hiding out in Montreal have invaded the sleepy town of St. Albans, Vermont. They hold up several banks and flee back into Canada. For a time, they escape justice. Finally, Governor General Monk orders out the militia, and the raiders are arrested on Canadian soil. But far from condemning them, Montrealers seem fascinated by the Confederate robbers and their leader, Bennett Young. Even the judge doesn't take the crime very seriously and lets them go free. They even keep some of the stolen money. Americans clamor for retaliation. The Chicago Tribune urges the North to invade Canada.
Take Canada by the throat and throttle her, as a St. Bernard would a poodle pup.
The crisis gives fresh impetus to the delegates in Quebec. As the conference draws to a close, MacDonald once again hammers home the need for a strong central government.
For the sake of securing peace to ourselves and our posterity, we must make ourselves powerful. The great security for peace is to convince the world of our strength by being united.
In the final days, doubters around the table are silenced by the sometimes overbearing Canadians. An agreement is reached, for now. The language of the Quebec deal is cautious, legalistic, deliberately different from the revolutionary phrases of France and America 100 years before. After many arguments, they agree to representation by population, a division of powers between federal and provincial governments, and peace, order, and good government for the citizens. Montreal MP Darcy McGee is proud of the balance they have struck.
Our principle, distinct from the American, is founded on an equal union of authority and liberty, and our safety lies in the growth of the national sentiment that we are a people amongst the great peoples of the world.
After 18 days, the delegates pack their bags and head home. George Brown jots a final note to his wife.
Dearest Anne, all right. Conference through at 6 o'clock this evening. Constitution adopted. A most creditable document. A complete reform of all the abuses and injustice we have complained of. Is it not wonderful? The old French domination is entirely extinguished. Some will say our Constitution is dreadfully Tory, and so it is. But we have the power in our hands to change it as we like. Hurrah!
Cartier is confident, perhaps too confident, his constituents will applaud the results.
This union we made in Quebec is the most just and equitable that could have been adopted in the circumstances. Yes, it will protect all our rights, all our interests, and will assure the prosperity of all the provinces.
London, November 1866. The Queen has lost her beloved husband, Prince Albert, but she is slowly returning to public life. The city is a dazzling sight for the visiting colonials. Cartier, the best tailored of the group, buys most of his clothes in London. In the best establishments, shirts are hand-woven from the finest Egyptian cotton. Cartier also orders dresses for his mistress, Luce Cuvillier. He has been having a very public affair with her for years. The two often travel overseas together. John A. MacDonald is also delighted to be back in the great city. While out on a stroll, he spots a familiar face in the crowd. Until now, Agnes Bernard has spurned his advances. He hopes she will reconsider in this exotic setting. Delegates from Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Canada have checked in at the Westminster Palace Hotel. No one has come from Newfoundland or Prince Edward Island, where the deal is in disfavor. They are here to hammer out the final details of their accord. It is complex legal work. One delegate spends time doodling. At the colonial office, Sir Frederick Rogers takes careful note of the visiting colonials.
MacDonald was the ruling genius and spokesman, and I was very greatly struck by his power of management and adroitness. The French delegates were keenly on the watch for anything which weakened their securities. The Nova Scotia and New Brunswick delegates were very jealous of concession to the Arriere province. The slightest divergence from the narrow line already agreed on in Canada was watched for as eager dogs watch a rat hole.
Only one important change to the Quebec deal is made in London. At the request of English Protestants from Quebec, a new article is quietly inserted giving them special rights. MacDonald feels they must wrap up their work before other changes are demanded. The delays are taking their toll as he writes to his sister.
My dear Louisa, for fear that an alarming story may reach you, I may as well tell you as it occurred. Cartier, Galt, and myself returned from Lord Carnarvon's place in the country late at night. I fell asleep and was awakened by intense heat. I found my bed and curtains all on fire. All the bedclothes were blazing. I then went to Cartier's bedroom and, with his assistants, carried all the water in 3 adjoining rooms into mine. My shirt was burnt on my back, and my hair, forehead, and hands scorched.
MacDonald spends Christmas in bed with severe burns to his shoulder. By February, he has recovered enough to marry 32-year-old Agnes Bernard, whom he has finally won over. He ceases to be a widower, and she a spinster. As February turns to March, tension rises. At Westminster, the Conservative government is on the brink of falling, endangering the safe passage of the Canadian Bill. But the eloquent colonial secretary, Lord Carnarvon, gives the British North America Act its final push.
We are laying the foundation of a great state. Perhaps one which, at a future day, may even overshadow this country. But come what may, we shall rejoice that we have shown neither indifference to their wishes nor jealousy of their aspirations.
On March 29th, the Queen gives her consent to the union of her British North American colonies. Canada, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick will now become the Dominion of Canada. As they make their way home, the founding fathers of Confederation are in a philosophical mood.
No wonder the French follow political affairs in Canada with such interest. They cannot believe that we have undergone a major political revolution without spilling any blood, which they have done so prodigiously.
What kind of Canada did the citizens of the new Dominion wake up to on July 1st, 1867? It depended on where they woke up. In Ottawa, John A. is now Sir John A. Macdonald, the Prime Minister of Canada. His handsome office on Parliament Hill has all the modern conveniences, gas lights and running water. His wife, Lady Agnes Macdonald, begins a new diary.
This new dominion of ours came noisily into existence on the 1st. And the very newspapers seem hot and tired with the weight of announcements and cabinet lists. Here in this house, the atmosphere is so awfully political that sometimes I think the very flies hold parliament on the kitchen tablecloths.
In Toronto, at the Globe office, George Brown has been up all night. At 7 a.m., he finally settles on a modest 9,000-word ode to the new country.
With the first dawn of this gladsome midsummer morn, we hail the birthday of a new nationality.
Everywhere, it is a dazzling, sunny day. The citizens of Upper Canada now live in a province called Ontario. The reverberations of a brass band can be heard in every town. In Kingston, a crowd gathers to ring in the new country. In Quebec City, a cannon is fired on the Plains of Abraham. Most Canadiens will spend time by the water, happy to have a long weekend. In Montreal, La Minerve, the paper most closely associated with Cartier, describes the country he has helped bring into being.
As a distinct and separate nationality, we form a state within a state. We enjoy the full exercise of our rights and the formal recognition of our national independence.
In Nova Scotia, the British colonist expresses the official view.
The days of isolation and dwarfhood are past. Henceforth we are a united people, and the greatness of each goes to swell the greatness of the whole.
In other quarters, the mood is distinctly truculent.
An effigy of Dr. Tupper was suspended by the neck all afternoon on the spot known as the Devil's Half-Acre, and in the evening was burnt side by side with a live rat.
On this July 1st, Prince Edward Islanders have little to celebrate. No agreement has been reached on buying back their farms from absentee landowners. Like Newfoundland, they have not entered Confederation for now. Not until 1873 will PEI celebrate July 1st with the rest of Canada. But on this July 1st, the night is starlit and warm, a moment never forgotten by a young girl in Hamilton, Ontario.
There was the dark, and then there was the light of a candle. Then there was the opening of the great door and the rush of cool, fresh air and the deep darkness. "Oh, look," said a voice. The sky was suddenly full of shooting stars. There were fountains of stars, colored red and green and blue, spraying bright balls of color into the air. There were some which tipped their colors into the air to mirror them in the water. "This is the 1st of July in the year 1867, Father said. Always remember this day and this night. You're a very lucky little girl to be a child in Canada today."
Next on Canada, A People's History. The trials of the new Dominion. The murder that tested the tolerance of a nation. A prairie province born of an armed uprising, and the completion of a dream, Canada from sea to sea.